All right, we are coming up on 8 o'clock. So, let's go ahead and settle in, get comfortable, grab ourselves our book, and get back where we left off. Welcome back. This is our fourth night of reading from John Milton's Paradise Lost. We've had a bit of a wild ride so far. It's every bit as dense as you might expect, feeling biblical in scale, which, I mean, that was the intent. But it's every bit as fantastical as you might expect. And just a moment, I do have to get a look here, because wouldn't you know, the automod yanked your first comment from chat, but I see it on the stream, so I'm having to read your comment from my own stream. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. You know what? I would believe it. She was talking to me about that earlier, and it's absolutely criminal how bad it is. So I might have to give in and watch it at some point, but I have been afraid to, because it's just that bad. But it is what it is. Alright, so we left off last time. Yeah, I don't know what. Maybe it doesn't like money laundering? I don't know. We left off with Raphael. At least at best, he tops out at second favorite Raphael for, I think, everyone, so it's fine. But Raphael retelling the story of the war in heaven and Lucifer's fall to Adam and Eve, sort of to give them forewarning and let them know what is out to get them right now. Because he knows, and the angelic host knows, that Lucifer's about, and he's got something of a grudge to carry out. And so we're going to see what sort of warnings are taken to heart, or whether they'll be a little bit more open than is healthy. So let's go ahead and jump back in where we left off, which is from Book 7 of Paradise Lost. We can hopefully get through 2 books again tonight. We've been making pretty good progress, and stable progress. We are just north of the halfway point, so we've got probably after tonight another 3 streams or so. So probably around the end of the weekend we'll be pulling up on the end of this one. Alright, Book 7. Descend from heaven, Urania, by that name, if rightly thou art called, whose voice divine following, above the Olympian hill I soar, above the flight of Pegasean wing. The meaning, not the name, I call, for thou nor the Muses 9, nor on the top of old Olympus dwellest, but heavenly born. Before the hills appeared or fountain flowed, thou with eternal wisdom didst converse. Wisdom, thy sister, and with her didst play in presence of the Almighty Father, pleased with thy celestial song. Upled by thee into the heaven of heavens, I have presumed, an earthly guest, and drawn imperial air. Thy tempering, with like safety guided down, returned me to my native element. Lest from this flying steed unreined, as once Bellerophon, though from a lower clime, dismounted, on the Elaean field I fall, erroneous there to wander and forlorn. Half yet remains unsung, but narrower bound within the visible diurnal sphere, standing on earth, not wrapped above the pole, more safe I sing with mortal voice unchanged to hoarse or mute, though fallen on evil days. On evil days though fallen, and evil tongues in darkness and with dangers compassed round, and solitude, yet not alone, while thou visitest my slumbers nightly, or when morn purples the east, still govern thou my song, Urania, and fit audience find, though few, but drive far off the barbarous dissonance of Bacchus and his revellers, the race of that wild rout that tore the Thracian bard in Rhodope, where woods and rocks had ears, to rapture, till the savage clamour drowned both harp and voice, nor could the muse defend her son. So fail not thou, who thee implores, for thou art heavenly, she an empty dream. Say, goddess, what ensued when Raphael, the affable archangel, had forewarned Adam, by dire example, to beware apostasy? By what befell in heaven to those apostates, lest the like befall in paradise to Adam or his race, charged not to touch the interdicted tree, if they transgress, and slight that sole command, so easily obeyed amid the choice of all tastes else to please their appetite? Though wandering, he, with his consorted Eve, the story heard attentive, and was filled with admiration and deep muse, to hear of things so high and strange, things to their thought so unimaginable, as hate in heaven, and war so near the peace of God in bliss, with such confusion. But the evil, soon driven back, redounded as a flood on those from whom it sprung, impossible to mix with blessedness. Whence Adam soon repealed the doubts that in his heart arose, and now led on, yet sinless, with desire to know what nearer might concern him, how this world of heaven and earth conspicuous first began, when and whereof created, for what cause, what within Eden or without was done before his memory, as one whose drouth yet scarce allayed still eyes the current stream, whose liquid murmur heard new thirst excites, proceeded thus to ask his heavenly guest. Great things, and full of wonder in our ears, far differing from this world, thou hast revealed. Divine interpreter, by favour sent down from the Empyrean to forewarn us timely of what might else have been our loss, unknown, which human knowledge could not reach, for which to the infinitely good we owe immortal thanks, and his admonishment receive with solemn purpose to observe immutably his sovereign will, the end of what we are. But since thou hast vouchsafed gently for our instruction to impart things above earthly thought, which yet concerned our knowing, as to highest wisdom seemed, deign to descend now lower, and relate what may no less perhaps avail us known, how first began this heaven, which we behold distant so high, with moving fires adorned innumerable, and this which yields or fills all space, the ambient air wide interfused, embracing round this floried earth. What cause moved the Creator, in his holy rest through all eternity, so late to build in chaos, and the work begun, how soon absolved? If, unforbid, thou mayest unfold what we, not to explore the secrets, ask of this eternal empire, but the more to magnify his works, the more we know. And the great light of day yet wants to run much of his race through though steep suspense in heaven. Held by thy voice, thy potent voice, he hears, and longer will delay to hear thee tell his generation, and the rising birth of nature from the unapparent deep. Or if the star of evening and the moon haste to thy audience, night with her will bring silence, and sleep, listening to thee, will watch. Or we can bid his absence till thy song end, and dismiss thee ere the morning shine. Thus Adam, his illustrious guest, besought, and thus the godlike angel answered mild. This also thy request, with caution asked, obtain. Though to recount almighty works, what words or strange tongue of seraph can suffice, or heart of man suffice to comprehend? Yet what thou canst attain, which best may serve to glorify the Maker, and infer thee also happier, shall not be withheld thy hearing. Such commission from above I have received, to answer thy desire of knowledge within bounds. Beyond abstain to ask, nor let thine own inventions hope things not revealed, which the invisible King, only omniscient, hath suppressed in night. To none communicable in earth or heaven, enough is left besides to search and know. But knowledge is as food, and needs no less her temperance over appetite, to know in measure what the mind may well contain, oppresses else with surfeit, and soon turns wisdom to folly, as nourishment to wind. Know then, that after Lucifer from heaven, so call him, brighter once amidst the host of angels than that star the stars among, fell with his flaming legions through the deep into his place, and the great sun returned victorious with his saints. The omnipotent eternal Father from his throne beheld their multitude, and to his Son thus spake, At least our envious foe hath failed, who thought all like himself rebellious, by whose aid this inaccessible high strength, the seat of deity supreme, us dispossessed, he trusted us to have seized, and into fraud drew many, whom their place knows here no more. Yet far the greater part have kept, I see, their station. Heaven, yet populous, retains number sufficient to possess her realms, though wide, and with this high temple to frequent with ministries due, and solemn rites. But lest his heart exalt him in the harm already done, to have dispeopled heaven, my damage fondly deemed, I can repair that detriment, if such it be to lose self lost, and in a moment will create another world, out of one man a race of men innumerable, there to dwell, not here, till, by degrees of merit raised, they open to themselves at length the way up hither, under long obedience tried, and earth be changed to heaven, and heaven to earth, one kingdom, joy and union without end. Meanwhile, inhabit lax, ye powers of heaven, and thou, my word, begotten Son, by thee, this I perform, speak thou, and be it done. My overshadowing spirit and might with thee I send along. Ride forth, and bid the deep within appointed bounds be heaven and earth. Boundless the deep, because I am who fill infinitude, nor vacuous the space. Though I, uncircumscribed myself retire, and put not forth my goodness, which is free to act or not, necessity and chance approach not me, and what I will is fate. So spake the Almighty, and to what he spake his word the filial Godhead gave effect. Immediate are the acts of God, more swift than time or motion, but to human ears cannot without process of speech be told, so told as earthly notion can receive. Great triumph and rejoicing was in heaven, when such was heard declared the Almighty's will. Glory they sung to the Most High, good will to future men, and in their dwellings peace. Glory to him whose just avenging ire had driven out the ungodly from his sight, and the habitations of the just. To him glory and praise, whose wisdom had ordained good out of evil to create, instead of spirits malign, a better race, to bring into their vacant room, and thence diffuse his good to worlds and ages infinite. So sang the hierarchies. Meanwhile, the sun on his great expedition now appeared, girt with omnipotence, with radiance, crowned of majesty divine, sapience, and love immense. And all his Father in him shone. About his chariot numberless were poured cherub and seraph, potentates and thrones and virtues, winged spirits and chariots winged from the armory of God, where stand of old myriads, between two brazen mountains lodged against a solemn day, harnessed at hand, celestial equipage. And now came forth spontaneous, for within them spirit lived, attendant on their Lord. Heaven opened wide her ever-during gates, harmonious sound on golden hinges moving, to let forth the King of glory, in his powerful word and spirit, coming to create new worlds. On heavenly ground they stood, and from the shore they viewed the vast, immeasurable abyss, outrageous as a sea, dark, wasteful, wild, up from the bottom turned by furious winds and surging waves as mountains to assault heaven's height, and with the center mixed the pole. Silence, ye troubled waves, and thou deep, peace, said the omnific word, your discord end. Nor stayed, but on the wings of cherubim, uplifted, in paternal glory rode far into chaos, and the world unborn, for chaos heard his voice, him. All his train followed in bright procession, to behold creation, and the wonders of his might. Then stayed the fervid wheels, and in his hand he took the golden compasses, prepared in God's eternal store to circumscribe this universe, and all created things. One foot he centered, and the other turned round through the vast profundity obscure, and said, thus far extend, thus far thy bounds, this be thy just circumference, O world. Thus God the heaven created, thus the earth, matter unformed and void, darkness profound covered the abyss. But on the watery calm his brooding wings the Spirit of God outspread, and vital virtue infused, and vital warmth throughout the fluid mass, but downward purged the black Tartarus, cold infernal dregs. Adverse to life, then founded, then conglobed like things to like, the rest to several place disparted, and between spun out the air, and earth's self balanced on her center hung. Let there be light, said God, and forthwith light ethereal, first of things, quintessence pure, sprung from the deep, and from her native east to journey through the airy gloom began. Sphered in a radiant cloud, for yet the sun was not, she in a cloudy tabernacle sojourned the while. God saw the light was good, and light from darkness by the hemisphere divided, light the day and darkness night. He named. Thus was the first day, even and morn, nor passed uncelebrated, nor unsung by the celestial choirs, when orient light exhaling first from darkness they beheld. Birthday of heaven and earth, with joy and shout the hollow universal orb they filled, and touched their golden harps, and hymning praised God and his works. Creator hymn they sung, both when first evening was, and when first morn. Again God said, let there be firmament amid the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament expanse of liquid, pure, transparent, elemental air, diffused in circuit to the uttermost convex of this great round partition, firm and sure, the waters underneath from those above, dividing For as earth, so he the world built on circumfluous waters calm, in wide crystalline ocean. And the loud misrule of chaos far removed, lest fierce extremes contiguous might distemper the whole frame. And heaven he named the firmament. So even and morning chorus sung the second day. The earth was formed, but in the womb as yet of waters, embryon immature involved. Appeared not. Over all the face of earth main ocean flowed, not idle, but with warm, prolific humour, softening all her globe, fermented the great mother to conceive, satiate with genial moisture. When God said, "Be gathered now, ye waters under heaven, into one place, and let dry land appear," immediately the mountains huge appear, emergent, and their broad bare backs upheave into the clouds, their tops ascend the sky. So high is heaved the tumid hills, so low down sunk a hollow bottom broad and deep. Capacious bed of waters, thither they hasted, with glad precipitance, uprolled as drops on dust conglobing from the sky, part rise in crystal wall. Or ridge direct, for haste, such flight the great command impressed on the swift floods as armies at the call of trumpet, for of armies thou hast heard. Troop to their standard, so the watery throng, wave rolling after wave, where way they found, if steep, with torrent rapture, if through plain, soft ebbing, nor withstood them rock or hill, but they, or underground, or circuit wide, with serpent error wandering, found their way, and on the washy ooze deep channels wore, easy, ere God had bid the ground be dry, all but within those banks, where rivers now stream, and perpetual draw their humid train to dry land earth, and the great receptacle of congregated waters he called seas, and saw that it was good, and said, "Let the earth put forth the verdant grass, herb yielding seed, and fruit tree yielding fruit after her kind, whose seed is in herself upon the earth." He scarce had said when the bare earth, till then desert and bare, unsightly, unadorned, brought forth the tender grass, whose verdure clad her universal face with pleasant green. Then herbs of every leaf that sudden flowered, opening their various colours, and made gay her bosom, smelling sweet. And these, scarce blown, forth flourished, thick the clustering vine, forth crept the swelling gourd, up stood the corny reed, and battled in her field, and the humble shrub, and bush, with frizzled hair implicit. Last rose, as in dance, the stately trees, and spread their branches, hung with copious fruit, or gleamed their blossoms. With high woods the hills were crowned, with tufts the valleys, and each fountain side, with borders long the rivers, that earth now seemed like to heaven, a seat where gods might dwell, or wander with delight, and love to haunt her sacred shades. Though God had yet not reigned upon the earth, and man to till the ground none was, but from the earth a dewy mist went up, and watered all the ground, and each plant of the field, which, ere it was in the earth, God made, and every herb before it grew on the green stem, God saw that it was good. So even and morn recorded the third day. Again the Almighty spake, "Let there be lights high in the expanse of heaven, to divide the day from night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, and for days, and circling years, and let them be for lights, as I ordain their office in the firmament of heaven, to give light on the earth." And it was so. And God made two great lights, great for their use to man, the greater to have rule by day, the less by night, altern, and made the stars, and set them in the firmament of heaven to illuminate the earth, and rule the day in their vicissitude, and rule the night, and light from darkness to divide. God saw, surveying his great work, that it was good. For of celestial bodies, first the sun, a mighty sphere he framed, unlightsome first, though of ethereal mould. Then formed the moon, globose, and every magnitude of stars, and sowed with stars the heaven, thick as a field of light. Of light by far the greater part he took, transplanted from her cloudy shrine, and placed in the sun's orb, made porous to receive and drink the liquid light, firm to retain her gathered beams, great palace now of light. Hither, as to their fountain, other stars repairing, and in their golden turns draw light, and hence the morning planet gilds her horns. By tincture of reflection they augment their small, peculiar, though from human sight so far remote, with diminution seen. First, in his east, the glorious lamp was seen, regent of day, and all the horizon round invested with bright rays. Jocund to run his longitude through heaven's high road, the grey dawn and the Pleiades before him danced, shedding sweet influence. Less bright the moon, but opposite, in levelled west was set. His mirror, with full face borrowing her light from him, for other light she needed none. In that aspect, and still that distance keeps till night. Then, in the east, her turn she shines, revolved on heaven's great axle, and her reign with thousand lesser lights dividual holds, with thousand stars, that then appeared, spangling the hemisphere, then first adorned with their bright luminaries that set and rose. Glad evening and glad morn crowned the fourth day, and God said, let the waters generate, reptile with spawn abundant, living soul, and let fowl fly above the earth with wings displayed on the open firmament of heaven. And God created the great whales, and each soul living, each that crept, which plenteously the waters generated by their kinds, and every bird of wing after his kind, and saw that it was good, and blessed them, saying, be fruitful, multiply, and in the seas, and lakes, and running streams, the waters fill. Let the fowl be multiplied on the earth forthwith, the sounds and seas, each creek and bay, with fry innumerable swarm, and shoals of fish that with their fins and shining scales glide under the green wave in skulls that oft bank the mid-sea, part single, or with mate, graze the seaweed their pasture, and through groves of coral stray, or sporting with quick glance show to the sun their waved coats dropped with gold, or in their pearly shells at ease attend moist nutriment, or under rocks their food. In jointed armor watch, on smooth the seal and bended dolphins play, part huge of bulk, wallowing unwieldy, enormous in their gait. Tempest the ocean, there Leviathan, hugest of living creatures, on the deep, stretched like a promontory, sleeps or swims, and seems a moving land, and at his gills draws in, and at his trunk spouts out a sea. Meanwhile, the tepid caves and fens and shores, their brood is numerous hatch from the egg that soon bursting with kindly rupture forth disclosed their callow young, but feathered soon and fledge. They summed their pens, and, soaring the air sublime, with clang despised the ground under a cloud in prospect. There the eagle and the stork on cliffs and cedar tops their eyries build. Part loosely wing the region, part moorwise in common, ranged in figure wedge their way, intelligent of seasons, and set forth their airy caravan, high over seas flying, and over lands with mutual wing easing their flight. So steers the prudent crane her annual voyage, borne on winds the air floats as they pass, fanned with unnumbered plumes. From branch to branch the smaller birds with song solaced the woods, and spread their painted wings, till even nor then the solemn nightingale ceased warbling. But all night thunder soft lays, others on silver lakes and rivers bathed their downy breast, the swan with arched neck between her white wings mantling proudly, rose her state with oary feet. Yet oft they quit the dank, and rising on stiff pennons, tower the mid-aerial sea. Others on ground walked firm, the crested cock whose clarion sounds the silent hours, and the other whose gay train adorns him, colored with the florid hue of rainbows and starry eyes. The waters thus with fish replenished, and the air with fowl, evening and morn solemnized the 5th day. The 6th, and of creation last, arose with evening harps and matin, when God said, "Let the earth bring forth soul living in her kind, cattle and creeping things and beast of the earth, each in their kind." The earth obeyed, and straight opening her fertile womb, teemed at a birth in numerous living creatures. Perfect forms, limbed and full grown, out of the ground uprose, as from his lair the wild beast where he wands in forest wild, in thicket, brake, or den, among the trees in pairs they rose. They walked, the cattle in their fields and meadows green, those rare and solitary, these in flocks pasturing at once, and in broad herds upsprung. The grassy clods now calved, now half appeared the tawny lion, pawing to get free his hinder parts, then springs as broke from bonds, and rampant shakes his bridled mane, the ounce, the leopard, and the tiger, as the mole rising. The crumbled earth above them threw in hillocks. The swift stag from underground bore up his branching head, scarce from his mould behemoth, biggest born of earth, upheaved. His vastness fleeced the flocks and bleating roes. As plants, ambiguous between sea and land, the river horse and scaly crocodile at once came forth, whatever creeps the ground. Insect or worm, those wave their limber fans for wings, and smallest lineaments exact, in all their liveries of decked of summer's pride, with spots of gold and purple, azure and green. These, as a lion, their long dimension drew, streaking the ground with sinuous trace, not all minims of nature, some of serpent kind. Wondrous in length and corpulence, involved their snaky folds and added wings, first crept the parsimonious emmet, provident of nature, in small room large heart enclosed, pattern of just equality, perhaps, hereafter, joined in her popular tribes of commonality. Swarming next appeared the female bee, that feeds her husband drone deliciously, and builds her waxen cells with honey stored. The rest are numberless, and thou their natures knowest, and gavest them names. Needless to thee repeated, nor unknown, the serpent, subtlest beast of all the field, of huge extent sometimes, with brazen eyes, and hairy mane terrific, though to thee not noxious, but obedient at thy call. Now heaven in all her glory shone, and rolled her motions, as the great first mover's hand first wheeled their course. Earth, in her rich attire, consummate, lovely smiled, air, water, earth. By fowl, fish, beast was flown, was swum, was walked, frequent, and of the sixth day yet remained. There wanted yet the master work, the end of all yet done, a creature, who, not prone and brute as other creatures, but endued with sanctity of reason, might erect his stature, and upright, with front serene, govern the rest, self-knowing, and from thence magnanimous, to correspond with heaven, but grateful to acknowledge whence his good descends, thither with heart and voice and eyes directed in devotion, to adore and worship God supreme, who made him chief of all his works, therefore the omnipotent, eternal Father, for where is not he present? Thus to his Son audibly spake, Let us make now man, in our image, man, in our similitude, and let them rule over the fish and fowl of sea and air, beast of the field, and over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creeps the ground. This said, he formed thee, Adam, thee, O man, dust of the ground, and in thy nostrils breathed the breath of life. In his own image he created thee, in the image of God express, and thou becamest a living soul. Male he created thee, but thy consort female, for race. Then blessed mankind, and said, Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, subdue it, and throughout dominion hold over fish of the sea and fowl of the air, and every living thing that moves on the earth. Wherever thus created, for no place is yet distinct by name, thence, as thou knowest, he brought thee into this delicious grove, this garden, planted with the trees of God, delectable both to behold and taste, and freely all their pleasant fruit for food gave thee. All sorts are here, that all the earth yields, variety without end, but of the tree, which tasted works knowledge of good and evil, thou mayest not. In the day thou eatest, thou diest. Death is the penalty imposed, beware, and govern well thy appetite, lest sin surprise thee, and her black attendant death. Here finished he, and all that he had made, viewed, and behold, all was entirely good. So even and more accomplished the sixth day, yet not till the Creator from his work desisting, though unwearied, up returned, up to the heaven of heavens, his high abode, thence to behold this new created world, the addition of his empire, how it showed in prospect from his throne, how good, how fair, answering his great idea. Up he rode, followed with acclamation, and the sound symphonious of 10,000 harps, that tuned angelic harmonies. The earth, the air resounded, thou rememberest, for thou heardst. The heavens and all the constellations rung. The planets in their station listening stood, while the bright pomp ascended jubilant. Open, ye everlasting gates, they sung. Open, ye heavens, your living doors. Let in the great Creator from his work returned, magnificent. His 6 days' work, a world open. And henceforth oft, for God will deign to visit oft the dwellings of just men, delighted. And with frequent intercourse, thither will send his winged messengers, on errands of supernal grace. So sung the glorious train ascending. He, through a heaven that opened wide her blazing portals, led to God's eternal house direct the way, a broad and ample road, whose dust is gold and pavement stars, as stars to thee appear, seen in the galaxy, that Milky Way, which nightly, as a circling zone, thou seest powdered with stars. And now, on earth, the seventh evening arose in Eden, for the sun was set, and twilight from the east came on, forerunning night, when at the holy mount of heaven's high-seated top, the imperial throne of Godhead, fixed forever, firm and sure, the filial power arrived, and sat him down with his great Father. For he also went invisible, yet stayed. Such privilege hath omnipresence. And the work ordained, author and end of all things, and from work, now resting, blessed and hallowed the seventh day, as resting on that day from all his work, but not in silence wholly kept. The harp had work and rested not, the solemn pipe and dulcimer, all organs of sweet stop, all sounds on fret by string or golden wire, tempered soft tunings intermixed with voice, choral, or unison, of incense clouds fuming from golden censers hid the mount. Creation and the 6 days' acts they sung, great are thy works, Jehovah, infinite thy power. What thought can measure thee, or tongue relate thee? Greater now in thy return than from the giant angels. Thee that day thy thunders magnified, but to create is greater than created to destroy. Who can impair thee, mighty king, or bound thy empire? Easily the proud attempt of spirits apostate, and their counsels vain thou hast repelled, while impiously they thought thee to diminish, and from thee withdraw the number of thy worshippers. Who seeks to lessen thee, against his purpose serves to manifest the more thy might. His evil thou usest, and from thence createst more good. Witness this new-made world, another heaven, from heaven gate not far, founded in view, on the clear hyaline, the glassy sea, of amplitude almost immense, with stars numerous, and every star perhaps a world of destined habitation. But thou knowest their seasons. Among these the seat of men, earth, with her nether ocean circumfused, their pleasant dwelling place, thrice happy men, and sons of men whom God hath thus advanced, created in his image, there to dwell and worship him, and in reward to rule over his works, on earth, in sea or air, and multiply a race of worshippers, holy and just, thrice happy, if they know their happiness and persevere upright. So sung they, and the Empyrean rung with hallelujahs. Thus was Sabbath kept. And thy request think now fulfilled, that asked how first this world and face of things began, and what before thy memory was done, from the beginning, that posterity, informed by thee, might know, if else thou seekest aught not surpassing human measure, say. And that brings us to the end of Book 7, which, yes, you're right, it was just Genesis with extra steps. Not even all of Genesis. It was like the first chapter of Genesis, stretched beyond all reason, with more detail than could possibly be wanted or called for. And of course, it was all Raphael just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. The Archangel has fallen now to third in my list of Raphaels. Sorry. If you make me use that voice the entire time for the entire chapter, I'm gonna have to withhold a little bit of favor. That's just how them's the breaks. Sorry. There were a few points in there. They very nearly hadn't the Captain Planet aligned. We were missing fire and heart, but we had all the other three all in a row. It was almost. It took a lot. It was a lot of self-restraint not to interject those. But I did it. I'm proud of myself. All right. The next chapter is a little on the shorter side. Well, it's about the same length as the one we just finished. So let me look ahead to what the third chapter of the night would be, and see if we can squeeze in two more tonight. Oh no. The next chapter was about twice as long. So let's not. Yikes. You know what? It's your prerogative. Chat has a lot of freedom in what they can say. Except for when Google decides to censor you without warning. So I guess you don't have quite as much freedom as you might think. Quandaries and quandaries. Alright, so we're definitely going to just get one more book in tonight. Because the potential third is far too long to try and squeeze in. So, let's go ahead and take an early break now. Stretch your legs, top up your drinks, and we'll be back in just a few minutes, wherein we'll continue with Book 8. Hopefully, without more of Raphael's rambling. It'd be nice to get back to either some just generic narratorship, or maybe Lucifer will come back and start to work his wiles. He's at least more fun than stick in the mud archangels. Yeah, I said it. I'll stand by it. Alright, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll be back in just a few minutes, and we'll continue. All right, we are back. So, given that the next chapter is about the same length as the first that we had tonight, we've got a little bit of leeway. We can take our time, gap a little bit, have some breaks wherever I can manage to eke out a little bit of breathing room in between the rantings and ramblings of the oh so loquacious archangels. So we'll see. We can just take our time with this. See if we can try and have a little bit of fun with it. So, let's go ahead and return to Book 8 of Paradise Lost. The angel ended, and in Adam's ear, so charming, left his voice that he a while thought him still speaking, and still stood fixed to hear. Then, as new waked, thus gratefully replied, "What thanks sufficient, or what recompense equal have I to render thee, divine historian, who thus largely hath allayed the thirst I had of knowledge, and vouchsafed this friendly condescension to relate things else by me unsearchable, now heard with wonder, but delight, and, as is due, with glory attributed to the high Creator. Something yet of doubt remains, which only thy solution can resolve. When I behold this goodly frame, this world of heaven and earth consisting, and compute their magnitudes, this earth, a spot, a grain, an atom, with the firmament compared, and all her numbered stars that seem to roll spaces incomprehensible, for such their distance argues, and their swift return diurnal, merely to officiate light round this opacous earth, this punctual spot, one day and night, in all her vast survey, useless besides. Reasoning I oft admire, how nature, wise and frugal, could commit such disproportions, with superfluous hand so many nobler bodies to create, greater so manifold to this one use, for aught appears, and on their orbs impose such restless revolution, day by day, repeated, while the sedentary earth, that better might with far less compass move, served by more noble than herself, attains her end without least motion, and receives as tribute such a sumless journey brought of incorporeal speed, her warmth and light, speed to describe whose swiftness number fails." Okay, so Adam, right now what you're describing is the problem with geocentrism, and you see the logical mismatch where it just doesn't quite fit. You wonder why how could it be that the entire universe is revolving and going around so very quickly around this tiny speck of Earth? You're onto something here. You're there. You're very close. You're about to hit on heliocentrism, and you're probably going to be led astray by an angel. Just calling it right now. Just calling it. So close. So close. He's like on the verge of heliocentrism and round Earth and everything. He's almost there, Adam of all things. And he's probably going to get shut down. Just wait for it. Just wait for it. So spake our sire, and by his countenance seemed entering on studious thought abstruse, which Eve perceiving, where she sat retired in sight, with lowliness majestic from her seat, and grace that one who saw to wish her stay, rose, and went forth among her fruits and flowers, to visit how they prospered, bud and bloom. Her nursery they at her coming sprung, and, touched by her fair tendance, gladlier grew. Yet went she not, as not with such discourse delighted, or not capable her ear of what was nigh. Such pleasure she reserved, Adam relating, her sole auditress. Her husband, the relator, she preferred before the angel, and of him to ask chose rather. He, she knew, would intermix grateful digressions, and solve high dispute with conjugal caresses. From his lip not words alone pleased her. Oh, when meet now such pairs in love and mutual honor joined? With goddess-like demeanor forth she went, not unattended, for on her, as queen, a pomp of winning graces waited still, and from about her shot darts of desire into all eyes to wish her still in sight. And Raphael now to Adam's doubt proposed, benevolent and facile thus replied, to ask or search I blame thee not, for heaven is as the book of God before thee set, wherein to read his wondrous works and learn his seasons, hours or days or months or years. This to attain, whether heaven move or earth, imports not, if thou reckon right. The rest from man or angel the great architect did wisely to conceal, and not divulge his secrets to be scanned by them who ought rather admire, or, if they list to try conjecture, he his fabric of the heavens hath left to their disputes, perhaps to move his laughter at their quaint opinions wide hereafter, when they come to model heaven and calculate the stars, how they will wield the mighty frame, how build, unbuild, contrive to save appearances, how gird the sphere with centric and eccentric scribbled o'er, cycle and epicycle, orb and orb. Already by thy reasoning this I guess, who art to lead thy offspring, and supposest that bodies bright and greater should not serve the less not bright, nor heaven such journeys run, earth sitting still, when she alone receives the benefit. Consider first that great or bright infers not excellence. The earth, though in comparison of heaven so small, nor glistering, may of solid good contain more plenty than the sun that barren shines, whose virtue on itself works no effect, but in the fruitful earth there first received his beams, unactive else their vigor find. Yet not to earth are those bright luminaries officious, but to thee, earth's habitant. And for the heaven's wide circuit let it speak the Maker's high magnificence, who built so spacious and his line stretched out so far, that man may know he dwells not in his own, an edifice too large for him to fill, lodged in a small partition, and the rest ordained for uses to his Lord best known. The swiftness of those circles attribute, though numberless, to his omnipotence, that to corporal substances could add speed almost spiritual. Me thou thinkest not slow, who since the morning hour set out from heaven where God resides, and ere midday arrived in Eden, distance inexpressible, by numbers that have name. But this I urge, admitting motion in the heavens, to show invalid that which thee to doubt it moved. Not that I so affirm, though so it seem to thee who hast thy dwelling here on earth. God, to remove his ways from human sense, placed heaven from earth so far that earthly sight, if it presume, might err in things too high, and no advantage gain. What if the sun be centre to the world, and other stars, by his attractive virtue and their own incited, dance about him in various rounds, their wandering course now high, now low, then hid, progressive, retrograde, or standing still? In 6 thou seest, and what if 7th, to these, the planet Earth, so steadfast though she seem, insensibly 3 different motions move? Which else to several spheres thou must ascribe, moved contrary with thwart obliquities? Or save the sun his labour, and that swift nocturnal and diurnal rom supposed, invisible else above all stars, the wheel of day and night, which needs not thy belief, if earth, industrious of herself, fetch day travelling east, and with her part averse from the sun's beam meet night, her other part still luminous by his ray? What if that light, sent from her through the wide transpicuous air, to the terrestrial moon be as a star, enlightening her by day, and she by night, this earth, reciprocal? If land be there, fields and inhabitants, her spots thou seest as clouds, and clouds may rain, and earth and rain produce fruits in her softened soil for some to eat, allotted there, and other suns, perhaps, with their attendant moons thou wilt descry, communicating male and female light, which 2 great sexes and animate the world, stored in each orb, perhaps with some that live, for such vast room in nature unpossessed by living soul, desert and desolate, only to shine, yet scarce to contribute, each orb a glimpse of light, conveyed so far down to this habitable, which returns light back to them, is obvious to dispute. But whether thus these things, or whether not, but whether the sun predominant in heaven rise on the earth, or earth rise on the sun, he from the east his flaming road begin, or she from the west her silent course advance, with inoffensive pace that spinning sleeps on her soft axle while she paces even, and bears thee soft with the smooth air along, solicit not thy thoughts with matters hid. Leave them to God above, him serve, and fear. Of other creatures, as him pleases best, wherever placed, let him dispose. Joy thou in what he gives to thee, this paradise, and thy fair Eve. Heaven is for thee too high to know what passes there. Be lowly wise. Think only what concerns thee and thy being. Dream not of other worlds. What creatures there live in what state, condition, or degree? Contented that thus far hath been revealed, not of earth only, but of highest heaven. Yeah, cool, Raphael. Very, very clear. Very crystal clear. Like, oh, it might be that the Earth goes around the sun. It might not be that everything is just moving around and around faster and faster and faster than you could possibly imagine. Or it could be the other way around. Or it could be this, or it could be that. There's no telling. I won't hint. That's a part of the fun, watching you bumble about in ignorance and laughing when you get it wrong. Thanks, God. And then to finish off, you're better off just not questioning these things. Don't think about it. Don't wonder about it. Just be along your little busy way. It's fine. Just scurry along. It's fine. You reign supreme over the earth, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, what if the sky were made of pudding? What if? Imagine! To whom thus Adam, cleared of doubt, replied, How fully hast thou satisfied me, pure intelligence of heaven, angel serene! Bro, don't just take that shit. And freed from intricacies, taught to live the easiest way, nor with perplexing thoughts to interrupt the sweet of life, from which God hath bid dwell far off all anxious cares, and not molest us, unless we ourselves seek them with wandering thoughts and notions vain. But apt the mind or fancy is to rove unchecked, and of her roving is no end, till warned, or by experience taught she learn, that, not to know at large of things remote from use, obscure and subtle, but to know that which before us lies in daily life, is the prime wisdom. What is more, is fume, or emptiness, or fond impertinence, and renders us, in all things that most concern, unpractised, unprepared, and still to seek. Therefore, from this high pitch let us descend a lower flight, and speak of things at hand, useful, whence, haply, mention may arise of something not unseasonable to ask. By sufferance, and thy wonted favour deigned, thee I have heard relating what was done ere my remembrance. Now, hear me relate my story, which, perhaps, thou hast not heard, and day is not yet spent, till then thou seest how subtly to detain thee I devise, inviting thee to hear while I relate. Fond, were it not in hope of thy reply, for while I sit with thee, I seem in heaven, and sweeter thy discourse is to my ear than fruits of palm tree pleasantest to thirst and hunger both, from labour, at the hour of sweet repast they satiate, and soon fill, though pleasant, but thy words, with grace divine imbued, bring to their sweetness no satiety. To whom thus Raphael answered, heavenly meek, Nor are thy lips ungraceful, sire of men, nor tongue ineloquent, for God on thee abundantly his gifts hath also poured, inward and outward both, his image fair. Speaking or mute, all comeliness and grace attends thee, and each word, each motion forms. Nor less think we in heaven of thee on earth than of our fellow servant, and inquire gladly into the ways of God with man. For God, we see, hath honoured thee, and set on man his equal love. Say therefore on. For I that day was absent, as befell, bound on a voyage uncouth and obscure, far on excursion towards the gates of hell, squared in full legion, such command we had, to see that none thence issued forth a spy, or enemy, while God was in his work, lest he, incensed at such eruption bold, destruction with creation might have mixed. Not that they durst without his leave attempt, but us he sends upon his high behests for state, as sovereign king, and to endure our prompt obedience. Fast we found, fast shut, the dismal gates barricadoed strong. But long ere our approaching heard within noise, other than the sound of dance or song, torment, and loud lament, and furious rage. Glad we returned up to the coasts of light, ere Sabbath evening, so we had in charge. But thy relation now, for I attend, pleased with thy words no less than thou with mine. So spake the godlike power, and thus our sire. For man to tell how human life began is hard. For who himself, beginning knew, desire with thee still longer to converse, induced me, as new waked from soundest sleep, soft on the flowery herb I found me laid, in balmy sweat, which with his beams the sun soon dried, and on the reeking moisture fed, straight toward heaven my wondering eyes I turned, and gazed awhile the ample sky, till, raised by quick instinctive motion, up I sprung, as thitherward endeavouring, and upright stood on my feet. About me round I saw hill, dale, and shady woods, and sunny plains, and liquid laps of murmuring streams. By these creatures that lived and moved and walked or flew, birds on the branches warbling, all things smiled. With fragrance and with joy my heart o'erflowed. Myself I then perused, and limb by limb surveyed, and sometimes went, and sometimes ran with supple joints, as lively vigor led. But who I was, or where, or from what cause, knew not. To speak I tried, and forthwith spake. My tongue obeyed, and readily could name whate'er I saw. Thou sun, said I, fair light, and thou enlightened earth, so fresh and gay, ye hills and dales, ye rivers, woods, and plains, and ye that live and move, fair creatures, tell, if ye saw how I came thus, how here? Not of myself, by some great maker then, in goodness and in power preeminent. Tell me, how may I know him, how adore, from whom I have that thus I move and live, and feel that I am happier than I know. While thus I called, and strayed I knew not whither, from where I first drew air, and first beheld this happy light, when, answer none returned, on a green shady bank, profuse of flowers, pensive I sat me down. There gentle sleep first found me, and with soft oppression seized my drowsed sense, untroubled, though I thought I then was passing to my former state, insensible, and forthwith to dissolve, when suddenly stood at my head a dream, whose inward apparition gently moved my fancy to believe I yet had being, and lived. One came, methought, of shape divine, and said, Thy mansion wants thee, Adam. Rise, first man of men innumerable, ordained, first father. Called by thee, I come thy guide, to the garden of bliss, thy seat prepared. So saying, by the hand he took me raised, and over fields and waters, as in air, smooth sliding without step, last led me up a woody mountain, whose high top was plain, a circuit wide enclosed with goodliest trees, planted with walks and bowers, that what I saw of earth before scarce pleasant seemed. Each tree laden with fairest fruit, that hung to the eye tempting, stirred in me sudden appetite to pluck and eat, whereat I waked, and found before mine eyes all real, as the dream had lively shadowed. Here had new begun my wandering, had not he, who was my guide up hither, from among the trees appeared, presence divine, rejoicing, but with awe, in adoration at his feet I fell submiss. He reared me, and whom thou soughtest I am, said mildly, author of all this thou seest above, or round about thee, or beneath, this paradise I give thee. Count it thine, to till and keep, and of the fruit to eat. Of every tree that in the garden grows, eat freely with glad heart, fear here no dearth. But of the tree whose operation brings knowledge of good and ill, which I have set the pledge of thy obedience and thy faith, amid the garden by the tree of life, remember what I warned thee. Shun to taste, and shun the bitter consequence, for know, the day thou eatest thereof, my sole command transgressed, inevitably thou shalt die. From that day, mortal, and this happy state shalt lose, expelled from hence into a world of woe and sorrow. Sternly he pronounced the rigid interdiction, which resounds yet dreadful in mine ear, though in my choice not to incur, but soon his clear aspect returned, and gracious purpose thus renewed. Not only these fair bounds, but all the earth to thee and to thy race I give, as lords possess it, and all things that therein live, or live in sea, or air, beast, fish, and fowl. Oh, can you hear him? Wow. Yeah, Mr. Simba's doing rumbling. In sign whereof, each bird and beast behold, after their kinds I bring them to receive from thee their names, and pay thee fealty. With low subjection, understand the same of fish within their watery residence, not hither summoned, since they cannot change their element to draw the thinner air. As thus he spake, each bird and beast behold approached two and two, these cowering low with blandishment. Each bird stooped on his wing. I named them as they passed, and understood their nature. With such knowledge God endued my sudden apprehension. But in these I found not what methought I wanted still, and to the heavenly vision thus presumed, oh, by what name? For thou above all these, above mankind, or aught than mankind higher, surpassest far my naming. How may I adore thee, author of this universe, and all this good to man, for whose well-being so amply, and with hands so liberal, thou hast provided all things? But with me, I see not who partakes. In solitude, what happiness! Who can enjoy alone, or, all enjoying, what contentment find? Thus I, presumptuous, and the vision bright, as with a smile more brightened, thus replied, What callest thou solitude? Is not the earth, with varying living creatures, and the air replenished, and all these at thy command, to come and play before thee? Knowest thou not their language and their ways? They also know, and reason not contemptibly. With these find pastime, and bear rule. Thy realm is large. So spake the universal Lord, and seemed so ordering. I, with leave of speech implored, and humble deprecation thus replied, Let not my words offend thee, heavenly power, my maker, by propitious while I speak. Hast thou not made me here thy substitute? And these inferior far beneath me set? Among unequals, what society consort? What harmony, or true delight? Which must be mutual in proportion due given and received, but in disparity. The one intense, the other still remiss. Cannot well suit with either, but soon prove tedious alike. Of fellowship I speak, such as I seek, fit to participate all rational delight, wherein the brute cannot be human consort. They rejoice, each with their kind, lion with lioness. So fitly them in pairs thou hast combined. Much less can bird with beast, or fish with fowl, so well converse, nor with the ox or the ape. Worse then can man with beast, and least of all, whereto the Almighty answered, not displeased, a nice and subtle happiness, I see, thou to thyself proposest, in the choice of thy associates, Adam, and wilt taste no pleasure, though in pleasure solitary. What thinkest thou then of me, and this my state? Seem I to thee sufficiently possessed of happiness, or not? Who am alone from all eternity, for none I know second to me or like, equal much less. How have I then with whom to hold converse, save with the creatures which I made, and those to me inferior, infinite descents, beneath what other creatures are to thee? He ceased. I lowly answered, to attain the height and depth of thy eternal ways, all human thoughts come short, supreme of things. Thou in thyself art perfect, and in thee is no deficience found. Not so is man, but in degree the cause of his desire, by conversation with his like to help or solace he defects. No need that thou shouldst propagate, already infinite, and through all numbers absolute, though one. But man, by number, is to manifest his simple imperfection, and beget like of his like, his image multiplied, in unity defective, which requires collateral love and dearest amity. Thou in thy secrecy, although alone, best with thyself accompanied, seekest not social communication, yet, so pleased, canst raise thy creature to what height thou wilt of union or communion deified. I, by conversing, cannot these erect from prone, nor in their ways complacence find. Thus I emboldened spake, and freedom used permissive, and acceptance found, which gained this answer from the gracious voice divine. Thus far to try thee, Adam, I was pleased, and find thee knowing not of beasts alone, which thou hast rightly named, but of myself, or of thyself, expressing well the spirit within thee free, my image not imparted to the brute, whose fellowship therefore unmeet for thee. Good reason was thou freely shouldst dislike, and be so minded still. I, ere thou spakest, knew it not good for man to be alone, and no such company as then thou sawest intended thee, for trial only brought, to see how thou couldst judge of fit and meet. What next I bring shall please thee, be assured. Thy likeness, thy fit help, thy other self, thy wish exactly to thy heart's desire. He ended, or I heard no more, for now my earthly by his heavenly overpowered, which it had long stood under, strained to the height in that celestial colloquy sublime, as with an object that excels the sense, dazzled and spent, sunk down and sought repair of sleep, which instantly fell on me, called by nature as an aid, and closed mine eyes. Mine eyes he closed, but open left the cell of fancy, my internal sight, by which, abstract as in a trance, methought I saw, though sleeping where I lay, and saw the shape, still glorious, before whom awake I stood, who, stooping, opened my left side, and took from thence a rib, with cordial spirits warm, and life-blood streaming fresh. Wide was the wound, but suddenly, with flesh filled up and healed, the rib he formed and fashioned with his hands. Under his forming hands a creature grew, manlike, but different sex, so lovely fair, that what seemed fair in all the world seemed now mean, or in her summed up, in her contained, and in her looks, which from that time infused sweetness into my heart, unfelt before. and into all things from her air inspired, the spirit of love and amorous delight. She disappeared and left me dark. I wake to find her, and forever to deplore her loss, and other pleasures all abjure, when out of hope, behold her, not far off, such as I saw her in my dream, adorned with what all earth or heaven could bestow to make her amiable. On she came, led by her heavenly Maker, though unseen, and guided by his voice, nor uninformed of nuptial sanctity and marriage rites. Grace was in all her steps, heaven in her eye, in every gesture dignity and love. I, overjoyed, could not forbear aloud, this turn hath made amends. Thou hast fulfilled thy words, Creator bounteous and benign, giver of all things fair. But fairest, this of all thy gifts. Nor enviest. I now see, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, myself before me. Woman is her name, of man extracted. For this cause he shall forego father and mother, and to his wife adhere. And they shall be one flesh, one heart, one soul. She heard me thus, and though divinely brought, yet innocence and virgin modesty, her virtue, and the conscience of her worth, that would be wooed and not unsought be won. Not obvious, not obtrusive, but retired. The more desirable, or, to say all, nature herself, though pure of sinful thought, wrought in her so, that seeing me, she turned. I followed her. She, what was honor knew, and with obsequious majesty approved my pleaded reason. To the nuptial bower I led her, blushing like the morn. All heaven and happy constellations on that hour shed their selectest influence. The earth gave sign of gratulation, and each hill joyous, the birds, fresh gales and gentle airs whispered it to the woods, and from their wings flung odors from the spicy shrub, disporting all till the amorous bird of night sung spousal, and bid haste the evening star. On his hilltop, to light the bridal lamp. Thus have I told thee all my state, and brought my story to the sum of earthly bliss, which I enjoy, and must confess to find in all things else delight indeed. But such as, used or not, works in the mind no change, nor vehement desire these delicacies, I mean of taste, sight, smell, herbs, fruits, and flowers, walks, and the melody of birds. But here, far otherwise, transported I behold, transported with touch. Here, passion first I felt, commotion strange. In all enjoyments else superior and unmoved, here only weak against the charm of beauty's powerful glance. Or nature failed in me, and left some part not proof enough such object to sustain. Or, from my side subducting, took perhaps more than enough, at least on her bestowed too much of ornament, in outward show elaborate, of inward less exact. For well I understand in the prime end of nature, her the inferior in the mind, calm down, and inward faculties, which most excel. In outward also her resembling less his image who made both, and less expressing the character of that dominion given o'er other creatures. Yet when I approach her loveliness, so absolute she seems. Okay, hang on. We're getting YouTubed again. Still dropping frames. Hang tight. Okay, I think it may be passed. Let's give it a moment to be sure that we can pull the monitor to live. Yep, yeah, getting YouTube does indeed sound terrible. Almost as terrible as Adam putting out the old tried and true nonsense of inferiority and other such nonsense right in the midst of it. So, thanks YouTube for putting a break to that. And we're dropping more frames. So as soon as I start to complain about Adam being kind of a git, we're getting more buffering. Hang tight. Okay. Maybe. Okay. Signal looks strong. Can we go live? We appear to be live. Okay. I think we're good. We don't have a whole lot left to get through tonight, so we can power through as needed. Yet, when I approach her loveliness, so absolute she seems, and in herself complete, so well to know her own, that what she wills to do or say seems wisest, virtuousest, discreetest, best. All higher knowledge in her presence falls degraded. Wisdom in discourse with her loses discountenanced. And like folly shows authority and reason on her weight, as one intended first, not after made, occasionally, and to consummate all, greatness of mind and nobleness their seat. Build in her loveliest, and create an awe about her, as a god angelic placed, to whom the angel with contracted brow hews not nature. She hath done her part. Do thou but thine, and be not diffident of wisdom. She deserts thee not. Oh, okay, no, this is shifting back to Raphael talking, I think. Yep. Of wisdom she deserts thee not, if thou dismiss not her, when most thou needest her nigh, by attributing overmuch to things less excellent, as thou thyself perceivest. For what admirest thou, what transports thee so? An outside, fair no doubt, and worthy well thy cherishing, thy honouring, and thy love. Not thy subjection. Weigh with her thyself, then value. Oft times nothing profits more than self-esteem, grounded on just and right, well managed. Of that skill the more thou knowest, the more she will acknowledge thee her head, and to realities yield all her shows. Made so adorned for thy delight the more, so awful that with honour thou mayest love thy mate, who sees when thou art seen least wise. But if the sense of touch, whereby mankind is propagated, seems such dear delight beyond all other, think the same vouchsafed to cattle and each beast, which would not be to them made common and divulged, if aught therein enjoyed were worthy to subdue the soul of man, or passion in him move. What higher in her society thou findest attractive, human, rational love still? In loving thou dost well, in passion not, wherein true love consists not. Love refines the thoughts, and heart enlarges, hath his seat in reason, and is judicious, is the scale by which to heavenly love thou mayest ascend. Not sunk in carnal pleasure, for which cause among the beasts no mate for thee was found. To whom thus, half abashed, Adam replied, neither her outside formed so fair, nor aught in procreation common to all kinds, though higher of the genial bed by far, and with mysterious reverence I deem, so much delights me, as those graceful acts, those thousand decencies that daily flow from all her words and actions mixed with love and sweet compliance, which declare unfeigned union of mind, or in us both one soul, harmony to behold in wedded pair, more grateful than harmonious sound to the ear. Yet these subject not, I to thee disclose. What inward thence I feel, not therefore foiled, who meet with various objects, from the sense variously representing, yet still free, approve the best, and follow what I approve. To love. Thou blamest me not, for love, thou sayest, leads up to heaven, is both the way and guide. Bear with me then, if lawful, what I ask. Love not the heavenly spirits, and how their love express they? By looks only, or do they mix a radiance, virtual or immediate touch? To whom the angel, with a smile that glowed celestial rosy red, love's proper hue, answered, is that Raphael blushing? Let it suffice thee that thou knowest us happy, and without love no happiness. Whatever pure thou in the body enjoyest, and pure thou wert created, we enjoy in eminence. An obstacle find none, of membrane, joint, or limb, exclusive bars. Easier than air with air, if spirits embrace. Total they mix, union of pure with pure desiring, nor restrained conveyance need, as flesh to mix with flesh, or soul with soul. But I can grow no more. The parting sun, beyond the earth's green cape and verdant isles, Hesperian sets, my signal to depart. Be strong, live happy, and love. But first of all, him, whom to love is to obey, and keep his great command. Take heed, lest passion sway thy judgment to do aught, which else free will would not admit, thine and all thy sons. The weal or woe in thee is placed, beware. I in thy persevering shall rejoice, and all the blessed stand fast. To stand or fall free in thine own arbitrament it lies. Perfect within, no outward aid require, and all temptation to transgress repel. So saying, he arose, whom Adam thus followed with benediction, since to part. Go, heavenly guest, ethereal messenger, sent from whose sovereign goodness I adore. Gentle to me and affable hath been thy condescension, and shall be honored ever with grateful memory. Thou to mankind be good and friendly still, and oft return. So parted they, the angel up to heaven, from the thick shade, and Adam to his bower. And that brings us to the end of chapter 8. So, this was another talking chapter. A lot of Raphael and a lot of Adam just talking to each other, expanding on Genesis and what was happening in and around the first 7 days, or 7 to 14 days or so. What has happened after Adam awoke and decided that, you know what, I'd like a wife. And, you know, there's the mild chauvinism that comes through in part that's just, you know, part and parcel with this sort of thing. But, Raphael kind of called him on it, so I'll give him a little bit there. But you can definitely see it's showing its age a little bit. Just a little bit. This was written in the 1600s, remember? So, as with all things, context and contemporary prevailing thought is important to keep in mind. But also, there are a lot of the sort that are taking this at face value are still of similar thought. So, I'm a little less forbearing than might otherwise be. All right. So, yeah, exactly. Raphael calling him out at all is quite forward thinking. There's a lot of this that is kind of towing the line. I mean, the whole idea of the possibility of heliocentrism, the idea of co-equal parts between man and woman, that Raphael pushed back toward, the like even the depiction of Satan at all, it kind of strikes me as I'm a little surprised that that Milton didn't get Galileo'd, because that's I know this is all meant to be presenting the creation and before and after in a positive light from Milton, but it seems like a very good way to get yourself self excommunicated. Just saying, you don't push the envelope too hard at these times. But I guess he was. I think Milton was a Protestant. This was round about when Protestant was starting to take heed. So there's a little bit more freedom there on what liberties can be taken. Actually, I do wonder if this has ever been. This is the sort of thing that strikes me as it very well could have been a banned book at some point. There's just enough that is towing the line that I wonder if it hasn't been. But it might be that it's because it's religious fanfic, it has gotten a pass from the more judicious banners of books. Oh, yeah, I guess it was banned a few times. The Catholic Church did not like it. Looks like it was the Catholic Church banned Paradise Lost from 1750 to 1900. That's a long stretch of ban. And some U.S. school districts had it banned. Yeah, so this is, yeah, as I was reading it and remembering, I'm like, this was probably banned at least in a few places. There's no way it wasn't, right? So that makes perfect sense. Oh, and it sounds like Milton had some other brushes with censorship. He was apparently rather anti-monarchy, which at the time is a good way to get your stuff pulled from shelves, and perhaps your head pulled from your shoulders. But that's another tale for another book, I think. I do wonder how many of our other books that we've read have had times on ban lists. Probably more than I think. That's some homework, I guess. I can figure out which ones have been banned and maybe make that a to-do list. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Protestants were also fairly anti-monarchy. Figure what was it? The English Church became the Anglicans, and that they were basically Catholic but English. And then the other Protestants were more of the puritanical sort and less for the monarchy. But yeah, I've got some homework for the next few days to see which books that we've read so far have been banned at any point, and maybe we can make a greatest hits, and that can actually guide some of our reading choices down the line. Because if someone tells you not to read it, that is the best reason in the world to read it. That it's as simple as that. So that is actually I like that idea a lot. Maybe we'll do a sub-series. I keep having ideas of other things we can do. Like we could do the radio shows, because those sounded like a lot of fun when we were doing War of the Worlds. We can do banned book series. We can do, I mean, we have a lot of books that we need to return to, and we've got upcoming spooky season, which obviously is going to need at least 1 or 2 books pulled, probably 2 or 3. I'm not sure how. I do want to make sure we read Bram Stoker, but I'm not sure how much of the time is going to take for that. But so we've got Bram Stoker. We've got we can get through Frankenstein. We can get through. I mean, we've got Poe to tap. We've got so many options, and there's only so much time. So we're probably going to co-opt some of September into the spooky season, which seems about fair, right? It's all meant to be. It's all around the harvest time. So September into October. That's all. It's all fair game. Shoot, if you go by what's up in the department stores, it's been Halloween since after the 4th of July. Oh, is there a new movie coming for Frankenstein? I wasn't aware of that. Now the question is, can it be as bad as War of the Worlds? That's a low bar, but it could be better. It could be good. Oh, really? Well, shoot, there's some hope yet. That could be exciting. Whenever I think of Frankenstein movies, I always think of, young Frankenstein. But that's another sort of thing entirely. Yeah, it is very much on brand for Toro. So that has a lot of potential to be really good. So I'll give that one the benefit of the doubt, and say it will probably be better than the recent War of the Worlds. Oh yeah, like that's so much of that's like his directorial thesis, and so that is the entire premise of Frankenstein. So that's incredibly on point. So he could very, very well do a lot of really cool things with that. So that's exciting. Very exciting to see. I didn't know that was coming up. So that'll be something to look forward to. I don't see very many movies these days, so I do need to get on that. But it's just so damn expensive. Man, I don't have it in me to drop $15 for a ticket and then going out for getting popcorn roll on top of it. That's too much. Oh yeah, that was a good one. I mean, De Niro as the monster was interesting, but it worked. Let's see. Yeah, because that was in the era they were redoing a lot of the classic monster flicks at that point. Because that was around the time of Interview with a Vampire and such, which is a retelling of Dracula in its own way. So it's you get a lot of the cool things like that. That's kind of the way of 90s, or 80s and 90s movies. A lot of them weren't good, but we still loved them. It's okay to like something that is not good. The fact that if you like something that's bad, that just means you got a special place in your heart, right? All right. So, we got through our 2 books tonight. The 2 chapters of Paradise Lost. We are just a little bit north of 60% through. We got about 10% in tonight, but it was two of the shorter books, so it's understandable to be a little less progress. But I do think we're probably about 3 days worth to get through. We'll see. We might stretch it out to 4. It really depends on how the chapters lay out. And actually, there's only there's 12 chapters. 12 chapters, and we're on 9. So there's 4 to go. How are we going to split that up? I gotta take a look and see how long these are. The next one is quite long. That's 28. It's about twice as long as what we've read tonight. So that is a lot. And the next one is about that length. 11 and 12 are shorter. So we may do Friday book 9, Saturday book 10, and then Sunday 11 and 12. And if we have to run long on Sunday to get it done, it's not the end of the world, because it's not that long. It's kind of long. We'll see. We'll see. There's that awkward line where it's not really enough to justify breaking it into 4 sessions, but there's also not good break points. So there's a real chance we might run a little long on some of the nights, but yeah, we'll be all right. We'll be all right. Okay. With that said, let's go ahead and wrap up a little bit early tonight. We've had our chat. It's been nice little change of pace. So it's been so dense reading Milton so far that it's nice to step back and relax a little bit and sort of decompress some. Take a little bit of piss out on Raphael with all his own yapping and bantering. Still say he's 3rd on my list. This will be one that, when this is all said and done, it's still better than Walden. And I'll have been glad to have read it. I've never actually read this in its original form. So it'll be good to have it under the belt. So it'll be all right. It's interesting going on, and since I've sort of abandoned the meter for it, and the meter in the verse, and just reading it as it is, it flows a little bit better. I think the first half hour or so reading on the first day was a little bit more stilted. The more natural speech going in from the further readings is, I hope, playing off a little bit better. But yeah, this is one that I'll be glad to have read it, but also glad to have it behind us. It is interesting now that I'm thinking about it. So this is obviously its inspiration for a great many things, like a lot of songs, a lot of music, a lot of bands do it. It's actually surprisingly popular among the metal and prog environments. But those in particular really only touch on the first few books of Paradise Lost. You don't see a whole lot in the middle. You don't see a whole lot even of the end. It's almost entirely of the fall and the War in Heaven is what I've seen it adapted or brought about. There's some touching on like the original sin itself, which I imagine at this pacing we're probably going to get into, if not on Friday, probably on Saturday. But it's interesting to see which parts are used as inspiration and by which groups. Like I could definitely see today's reading and Sunday's reading being used in a more I could see actual preachers pulling from it as inspiration for their own sermons. Because yes, it's not scripture in and of itself, but that hasn't stopped anybody before. But the more mainstream stuff, that's getting adaptations and inspirations. It's really just the war and the fall. You don't see much of anything else. So it's interesting, very interesting. And yeah, this is as you said, this isn't bad. It's not that we dislike this. It's that it is more effort than we are used to putting in. And that is fine. That is totally fine. Having to think and digest what you read is part of the fun. There's no shame in having a bit of an empty-headed read. I am definitely guilty of reading things that I don't need to have. I'm definitely guilty of reading things that require a room temperature IQ to understand. That is totally fine. It's enjoyable, it's fun. But these are good too. This is having to work at it and have the functional understanding is something that when it's done and it's finished, you can just say, huh, yeah, books just for entertainment are great. I will take a book that is just for entertainment any day over just turning on the TV for background noise. But I'm an old stick in the mud, so there's that. All right, so we've wandered and meandered well past where I intended to stop, and for the better of it, I think. I always do enjoy our times when we do have a chance to sit back and chat like this. It helps that Akabos and I share a brain cell about 75% of the time, so it's rather easy to talk to each other. But it's nice to be able to do this every once in a while. So with that bit of wind down, let's go ahead and wrap up for the evening. As always, thank you very much for joining us on our continued reading of Milton's Paradise Lost. This has been a lot of fun so far. We are coming up on the home stretch, probably 3 days left. So if you can join us for the weekend, we can see the end of the beginning, as I should say, because this is a retelling of Genesis after all. So yeah, we can see what sort of trouble we can get up to next time. And until then, thank you very much for joining us. If you have not yet, I encourage you to put a like on the stream and maybe subscribe to the channel. See that we're doing some fun things around here. Well then, I have a cat on the desk that very much wants attention. So I will leave you to your own devices. Have a wonderful night. Bye now.